Okay.
All right.
And
Hey guys, welcome to our eighth and final session of College Con 2021. We are so excited to have you guys here tonight. And we are also very fortunate to have if you were here at our previous session, we had two local representatives with us. We have another one here tonight that works in the Bellarmine Financial Aid Office and is here to kind of talk to us specifically about what you need to know about financial aid and that process. So we are very excited to have Jazzmine here with us this evening. If you have any questions, I will post the link to the question and answer document in the chat. You may also just chat directly if that's how you would like to communicate. If you would like to chat, I will give you a little tip. It is important that you log in to the YouTube channel. So you'll have to log into YouTube in order to have access to that chat. And you can do that through your JCPS email. But that is a way to be able to access the chat feature for the YouTube live session. So I am going to now turn it over to Jazzmine to get started with the presentation. And you can ask questions throughout, and we will ask those for you here live once she is finished.
Thank you, Ms. Maron. All right, again, my name is Jazzmine Golden. We'll go ahead and get started on what you need to know about financial aid. So if you watched the previous session, the admissions counselors already kind of covered for you a little bit about what the scholarships are in regards to financial aid. But just so you know, financial aid consists of funds provided to students and families to help pay for any post-secondary or educational expenses. And financial aid consists of scholarships, like they mentioned before, which can be outside scholarships, institutional scholarships, and outside scholarships are scholarships that you apply for outside of the institution in which you are applying for. And they could also be scholarships that are awarded through state aid programs. That you can also receive financial aid grants, loans, and also employment opportunities, which you guys are probably aware of or heard of before, called work study. So today we're gonna skip talking about scholarships since that was covered in the previous session, but we're gonna talk more so about grants, loans, and employment opportunities. But before we dive into that, I do want to take a few minutes to talk about one scholarship here in the state of Kentucky that you all are probably aware of, which is the Key Scholarship. The maximum award for Key Scholarship is $2,000. It's based on your GPA, but you can also receive bonuses to that award by receiving ACT bonuses in the amount of $500. If you take AP or IB classes, you can always also receive some bonuses there. And this Key Scholarship is renewable for 8 semesters, so you can receive that all 4 years while you're in school. If for some reason you take a break or take a semester off, you can always go back and start where you left off with your KEYS eligibility. KEYS is administered by the state of Kentucky through the KIA program. And if you want to check specifics about how KEYS are awarded or what GPAs you need to maintain in order to continue to receive that in college, you can check out the KIA website at any time. Also, if you kind of want to get an idea of where you stand now with the KEYS money that you've already obtained while you're in high school that you've earned, you can also check the status of your KEYS scholarship at kia.com. So moving on to some more state programs that are grant related, there are 2 here in the state of Kentucky. They're the College Access Program Grant and financial aid, we call it the CAP grant. You must be Pell eligible to receive this award. And this year, for the 21-22 academic year, that we award up to $2,900 in that CAP grant. For the Kentucky Tuition Grant, you have to be attending a private school in order to receive this grant. And we're awarding this year up to $2,908. Now, keep in mind that if you apply for schools in the state of two schools in the state of Kentucky, as soon as possible, fill out the FAFSA after October 1st. That is your application for these state programs. Kentucky is notorious for being one of the first states to run out of state aid programs. So you want to make sure that you're filing the FAFSA as soon as possible after October 1st. And we'll go into what that looks like. But you'll only see that Kentucky tuition grant pop up on your financial aid package if you're applying to a private university here in the state of Kentucky. Moving along to some federal aid programs. Now, you will see these federal aid programs pop up on your financial aid packages here in the state of Kentucky, but also in any state in the United States, because these are federally funded programs. So again, your application by applying for the FAFSA, this is your application for all of these federal aid programs as well. So the first one that you can see pop up is the Pell Grant. Also, another federal aid program is the Teach Grant. Now, for the Pell Grant, you do not have to pay that money back. It is free money that the federal government is giving to you based off of your financial need as determined by the FAFSA. So that's money that you don't have to worry about paying back after graduation. Now, the Teach Grant is a little different. The Teach Grant is specific for students who are interested in teaching at high need schools after graduating from college and as an education major. So students who are interested in being teachers, but specifically teachers at high need schools. So this Teach Grant, we do not put this on financial aid packages, but I wanted to let you know that it is a resource for future education majors out there. If this is something that you're interested in, you have the desire to work at a high need school, you want some extra cash to help pay for your out-of-pocket expenses in college, definitely reach out to the Office of Financial Aid that you're applying to at the school that you're applying to and ask if you can talk to them about the Teach Grant. The reason why we do not put this on financial aid packages is because if for some reason you decide after graduation, well, even while you're in school, if you take out the Teach Grant and then you decide, oh, well, I think I want to change my major to psychology, or maybe I want to be a doctor now and not a teacher, then that free money that the federal government gave you to help pay for your college now turns into a loan, and you actually have to start repaying those funds back to the federal government. So there's a lot of stipulations that go into the Teach Grant. I wanted to let you all know it is a resource for those of you out there who specifically want to become teachers in the future, but you have to do some extra steps to seek out that grant. Now, moving along, another federal aid program is the Federal Work Study Program. On the FAFSA application, you will have the opportunity to mark whether you're interested in doing a federal work study or if you're not interested. I always tell students and families to check yes to federal work study. If you are eligible, we will award that to you in the financial aid awarding process. But if you mark no on that FAFSA application, even if you're eligible, the Office of Financial Aid will not award you with that financial aid work study opportunity. And what work study looks like is it's just a job on campus or sometimes off campus, but still close by to the campus that you're applying to. It's a job that you will work minimal hours, maybe 10 to 15 hours a week, and you use that money towards your tuition. A lot of schools give you the opportunity to use those funds directly towards your tuition or to apply them to your student account so that you can use them for any other out-of-pocket expenses that you have. But federal work study is a great way for you to earn some cash towards your tuition or to help cover any educational expenses that you have while you're in school, while also building up some future skills to prepare you for your future careers after graduation. So moving along, another program that you might see is the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. known as SEOG. This is free money that's given to you by the federal government as well. So if you are curious as to what the stipulations are behind each of these programs, you can always visit studentaid.gov to find out more information about the program requirements. But we'll talk about a little bit about how financial aid offices determine what your financial need is and how you get eligibility for these federal aid programs as we move throughout the presentation. So another federal opportunity is federal loans. All the time when people apply for the FAFSA and receive their financial aid packages, I get phone calls and say, I see loans on this financial aid package, but we didn't apply for loans. We don't want them. Again, your FAFSA application is your application for all federal loans, grants, and state aid programs. So don't be alarmed if you see federal loans pop up on your financial aid packages in the future. You don't have to accept them, but they're there for you if you need them. And you should only take out what you need to cover your educational expenses, no more than that, because you want to be responsible borrowers. So there's two types of federal direct loans that students will see on their package. One is a subsidized loan. It's a need-based loan, so you have to have financial need as determined by the FAFSA to qualify for the subsidized loan. It is the best federal loan for you to take out because it does not start to accrue interest until 6 months after graduation. So all while you're in school, this loan is not accruing interest. You only have what you borrowed on the principal. No interest is accruing. This loan currently has a fixed interest rate of 2.75%. But each year, the federal government reevaluates that in the summer to see if there will be an increase in the interest rate. But once you take out the loan, your interest rate is locked in and fixed. Now, the second federal loan that you all will see pop up is the unsubsidized loan. This unsubsidized loan is not need-based, so you will get an unsubsidized loan on your financial aid package anywhere you go if you complete the FAFSA. Interest accrues on this loan while a student is in school, so it is not the best. It's not the best loan that you can take out, but it's still there for you if you need it. So all while you're in school, if you take out the unsubsidized loan, it is accruing interest, but you don't have to pay back either the subsidized or unsubsidized loan until 6 months after you graduate from college. Now, keep in mind that if you are interested in making payments on your unsubsidized loan, if you want to just pay off the interest while you're still in school, there are ways you can reach out to your lender and you can set up opportunities to at least be paying down some of that interest while you're in school. Now, there are PLUS loans available. Federal PLUS loans have to be taken out by the parent. So if you do see a federal PLUS loan pop up on your financial aid package, keep in mind that that is a separate application process than the FAFSA. So for that federal PLUS loan, it does require that a parent pass a credit check, and parents are allowed to borrow up to the cost of attendance. But the Parent Plus loans immediately start to accrue interest as soon as they're dispersed to students' accounts. The interest rate on that is 5.30%. So it's a little bit higher than the direct loans. However, it's still lower than some of the alternative loans that you'll find from outside loan lenders. The plus thing about the Parent Plus loan is that if for some reason a parent is denied the Parent Plus loan when they apply, they didn't go through the credit check for some reason, then the student that the parent is applying for the loan for will receive an additional $4,000 in their unsubsidized loan funds. So that's some additional unsubsidized money that the student can use that's in their name to pay for their out-of-pocket expenses. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about the private loans. Like I said, loans you should only borrow what you need to cover your educational expenses. So after you have exhausted all of your scholarships, your grants, your federal loan opportunities, if you still have an out-of-pocket cost that needs to be covered that you can't pay by yourself without additional funding, your last resort will be private loans. So you can research private lenders out there, such as Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, any local bank or institution that lends to student borrowers. You can research and find their information and apply for their loans, but always use private loans as a last resort. And keep in mind that for private loans, typically a student has to have a parent as a co-signer. So if you are interested in taking out a private loan, just keep in mind, students, that this will be a loan that's in your name, but you will have to have a parent or someone co-sign for you. If you are interested in Bellarmine and kind of want to take a look at the list of alternative loan lenders that we have, you can see that out on our financial aid webpage. So moving along, I did want to take a brief moment to talk about private scholarships. If you are interested in receiving outside scholarships, you definitely want to start that process. If you're a sophomore, junior, go ahead and start that process of looking for scholarships now. Even though you can't apply for them just yet, it is important that you kind of just get familiarized with what scholarships are out there, what they're requesting. Are they requesting that you write a resume? Are they requesting that you do an interview? Get familiar with those deadlines so that when you do come to senior year and it's time for you to start submitting those applications, you kind of have an idea of what's out there and what you want to apply for. So a good resource for these private scholarships is free searches online. Fastweb.com is it's a national scholarship database that students can use to find outside scholarships and apply for them. Also your high school counselors. So reach out to your high school counseling office. Ask them if they have any resources for you, if they know of any scholarships that you can apply for. Student and parent employers are also a good way, a good avenue for outside scholarships. For example, if you're working at Chick-fil-A or even McDonald's, those are some employers that students work at that do offer scholarships. And sometimes parents' companies may also offer scholarship opportunities. So it's always best to just ask. Any organization that you belong to, you should just reach out and ask if there's any scholarship opportunities that you can apply for, especially if you're involved in any clubs or church organizations. So let's talk a little bit about how you apply for financial aid. Well, the first thing that you're going, clicked a little bit too far. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to apply for your college of choice. So go through the admissions process. You're going to want to make sure that you reach out to the admissions office and ask if there are any separate scholarship applications that you need to complete aside from the FAFSA. So you want to make sure that you're completing all those scholarship applications that are needed for the specific school that you're applying for. And then separate from that, you need to ask if there's any departmental scholarships that are specific to your major that you can apply for. And once you've gotten all that information from the admission counselor at your school of choice, come October 1st, you definitely want to complete the FAFSA form. And we're briefly going to walk through what steps you need to take to complete that FAFSA application. Again, the deadline for the FAFSA, there's not a specific deadline for completing the FAFSA, but as soon as possible after October 1st, I can't stress that enough, to be considered for the maximum state aid eligibility. If you're applying out of state, then the October 1st deadline may not mean as much to you, but I still encourage you to do it as soon as possible, because the quicker you get the school that you're interested in, your FAFSA application, the faster they can be about processing that information, considering you for all other scholarship opportunities, and then we're giving you a financial aid package. So as soon as possible. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how your financial aid need is determined once we get your FAFSA application. So each school has a cost of attendance. A cost of attendance is different at each school, but it's all in all, it's made up of tuition, room, board, and fees. Also, it can cover books, supplies, transportations, even deodorant. They work in the cost of deodorant and toothpaste into cost of attendance. It also includes loan fees. Those are the general things that are included in every school's cost of attendance. Now, the cost of attendance is different than direct costs. Obviously, you're not going to be billed for deodorant if you apply for Bellarmine or UK or U of L. But the cost of attendance is just a general overview of what schools think it will cost a student to attend their university for the academic year. Now, you may send a request to the Office of Financial Aid that you're applying at the school that you're applying to, and ask if they can include in some of those things on the latter bullet. If you're interested in doing a study abroad, if your parents have a dependent or elder that they have childcare or additional expenses that they have, if you have any disabilities or education programs expenses that you need to pay for, and you need those included into your cost of attendance, you can always reach out to the Office of Financial Aid and see if they can work that into your overall cost of attendance, because that cost of attendance does matter in the determination of your financial need at each individual school. So maybe the next slide will better explain that process. So the cost of attendance at each school, like I said, is different. It's a variable, but your expected family contribution at each school is the same. And when you apply for when you complete the FAFSA application and apply for financial aid, you will receive a student aid report at the end that includes your expected family contribution. Now, your expected family contribution is just what the federal government thinks that your family will be able to contribute towards your educational expenses. So each financial aid office takes their cost of attendance minus their expected family contribution to figure out what your financial need is at their school. So again, at each school, the cost of attendance is different, but your expected family contribution is the same, and your financial need at each school will be different because it's also a variable. So now let's talk about actually completing the FAFSA. What steps do you need to take? First things first, you need to make sure that you sit down with a parent if that's applicable to your situation. So you definitely want to sit down with a parent and have all of your tax information near and dear to you. You'll need all of this personal and financial information for the year that you're applying for to be able to complete the FAFSA application. So for example, seniors this year who completed the FAFSA application needed to have their 2019 tax information readily available when they were completing the FAFSA application. If you are a junior next year on October 1st, on October 1st, when you go to complete the FAFSA, you'll want to make sure that you have your 2020 tax information readily available for you when you're starting to fill out the FAFSA application. The FAFSA is going to ask you to list down your address, your social security numbers, your date of birth. So you want to have all that information for both the student and the parent readily available. There are a couple ways to fill out the FAFSA application. The traditional way is at studentaid.gov. However, there are paper versions available, and believe it or not, you can also complete the FAFSA over the phone. So you can call the student aid hotline, or you can even use the app. So there are multiple ways that you can complete the FAFSA, but the most common way is just going to studentaid.gov on a desktop computer and completing the application that way. So once you're on studentaid.gov, the first thing that you and your parents need to do, and you can do this before October 1. Technically, if you want to go ahead and get a head start, students and parents, you can go out and do this today. You can obtain your FAFSA ID today, but you need to make sure that you write it down. If you have a little password book, make sure that when you're creating a FAFSA ID and password, that you're writing that information down, because you're going to use this FAFSA ID every year when you apply for the FAFSA. So when the student and parents sit down, one parent in the household and the student both need to have their own separate FAFSA IDs and passwords. So you go to studentaid.gov and you'll see a screen like this right here in front of you, and that's where you will create a FAFSA ID and password. So once you have completed the FAFSA ID and password and you're ready to get started on October 1, you're going to click this section where it says log in, and you're going to then start your FAFSA application. Once you start your FAFSA application, you're going to see a screen just like this. It's going to ask you for the student demographic information. You're going to input the student's address, their zip code, and their email address. Now, when you're creating your FAFSA ID and password, and when you're completing the FAFSA application, make sure that you do not use your current school email. And parents, make sure that you don't use your employer email. Make sure you use a personal email account, because again, the FAFSA ID is something that you're going to use every year when you're applying for FAFSA. So for some reason, if you lose access to your high school email once you graduate, you'll always be able to access the email address that you're using for your FAFSA application. So it's always important to have a separate email that all of your FAFSA information goes to, one that's personal to you and not tied to an organization. So after you've input all the student demographic information, the next section is going to be a school selection section. And on the school selection, you can list up to 10 schools that you want to send your FAFSA application to. However, only the top 5 schools that you list are going to actually receive your FAFSA application. So what you can do is fill out the school selection with your top 5 schools that you want to send the FAFSA to. Once you have completed the FAFSA form, you've submitted it, you've received your student aid report that it's been processed. Later on, a week or so later, after you've gotten all that confirmation information, you can go back into your FAFSA application, click make corrections, like on the slide right here before. See, you click the same login, but that gives you an option to make corrections. You'll sign in and do that. Flip back to the student selection tab, and you can take off one of those top 5 schools and add more to the top 5. And it's okay, because the schools that once you submitted your FAFSA the first time, those first top 5 schools have already received your FAFSA application. So if you want to go in and add 5 more to receive it, you can. So just keep in mind that you can go in and add additional schools to receive that application at a later time if you want to. It'll also, in that school selection section, it'll ask you if you're interested in living on campus or off campus, questions like that. Then you'll go into dependency status questions. And when you're on that tab, it's going to ask you specific questions to determine what your dependency status is. So if all of the answers to those questions are no, then you will be considered a dependent student, and you will be asked to input parent financial information. But if for some reason one of the answers to those questions is yes, then you will not be asked to input parent information. However, keep in mind that you might receive a letter or a notice from the Office of Financial Aid asking you to verify that you are indeed an independent student. So some of the questions that might appear during that dependency status tab, you might see questions like, are you an orphan or a ward of the court? Are you homeless or at risk of being homeless? Do you have a dependent that you support? So if you answer yes to any of those questions, just keep in mind that you may be asked to verify that you are indeed independent after your FAFSA is submitted and received by the Office of Financial Aid at your school of choice. So after you've passed the dependency status information, you're going to enter in your parent demographic information and parent financial information as well. And once you get to entering in the financial information, the quickest and easiest way to transfer information into the FAFSA is by using the IRS data retrieval tool. We encourage students and families to do this. So when you get to that financial information tab, it's going to ask you a few questions. For example, it'll ask you, have you already completed your tax return? What was your filing status? Did your parents file a Puerto Rican tax return? So once you answer all those questions, it will let you know you are eligible to use the data retrieval tool. Click here to link to the IRS. Don't be alarmed. The website is going to take you out of the FAFSA application into a secure irs.gov website where you will be asked to enter in your tax information, your demographic information exactly the way it is listed on your tax return. So that's why it's so important that you have your tax returns right next to you. One, if you're not eligible to use the IRS data retrieval tool, you will still need your tax returns to manually enter in the financial aid tax information. However, if you are eligible to use the data retrieval tool, you still need your taxes next to you because you'll have to enter your address in exactly the way it's printed on your tax return. So if for some reason your tax preparer spelled road RD instead of ROAD, you have to be that specific when you're in the IRS website in order for it to link correctly. So once you type in that information on the IRS website, you click link to the FAFSA and all of your tax information just shifts from the IRS website into the FAFSA application like magic. And this significantly cuts down on the time that it takes for you to complete the FAFSA. However, if for some reason you cannot link to the IRS, it is okay. You can manually enter in your tax information. The FAFSA has a lot of, as you can see in the slide here, there's these little question marks next to each question. So if you click the question mark, it will tell you the exact line item on your tax return in which you will need to look back and to find the answer to the question that they're asking. So if you get to this point and you really need help, you don't know where to turn as far as answering these questions regarding your financial tax information, you can give our Office of Financial Aid a call. Even if you're not interested in Bellarmine, we can still walk you through the steps of completing the FAFSA application. So once you've got all your financial aid information input into the FAFSA, the last step is signing and submitting. This is where your FAFSA ID and password will come back into play. Both the students and the parents will have to sign and submit the FAFSA. So once you've both signed, you'll hit submit and then you're done. You're done with submitting the FAFSA application. So I wanted to let you guys know a few common errors that are listed here on the screen in front of you. Make sure that when you're completing the FAFSA application that you have these in mind. When the FAFSA asks for, when you're creating your FAFSA ID and password, make sure that you have that social security number next to you if you don't have it memorized by heart. Parents, make sure that when it's asking for parent information, you're putting parent information in that section and not student information, because sometimes social security numbers can get mixed up. That's where we see it happen, is parents will enter their social security number for their student instead of for themselves. In the instance that there is divorce or separation or parents are remarried, this is another common error on the FAFSA applications. If there is a case where there's divorce in the family, you want to make sure that the parent who is providing over 50% of the financial support is the one that is listed on the FAFSA, or who the student has lived with the most in the past 12 months before completing the FAFSA. So, and if a parent is remarried, You want to make sure that both the biological parent and the step parent, if that's the parent that's listed on the FAFSA, the parent that's remarried, that both the biological parent and the step parent are both included on that FAFSA application. And so in household sizes is another common error. So if you have any questions about these common errors or need to know more information, you can definitely reach out to Offices of Financial Aid and we can walk you through the process of completing the FAFSA application. Keep in mind that the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So if anytime you need assistance completing this form, know that you can get assistance for free. You never need to pay anybody to complete the FAFSA application for you. Just pick up your phone, call any Office of Financial Aid, and we will walk you through the process. So like I said, after you've submitted your financial aid application, you're going to receive what's called a student aid report. This typically comes in the form of email unless you opted out of email notifications, and then it'll just come to you in the good old mailbox. But this student aid report, known as a SAR, it just summarizes all the information that you put on the FAFSA, and it also contains messaging related to like verification. So if you were selected for verification, then it will let you know that right there in that student aid report. So this is your first sign that you might be hearing from your schools of choice if you were selected to do some additional paperwork before receiving your financial aid package. And quickly, I want to talk to you all about verification because that's my expertise at Bellarmine University and what I do. So about 30% of students who apply for the FAFSA are selected for the process called verification. The federal government says that it's completely random process. It doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong when completing the FAFSA application. It's just that they want to verify that the information that you input into the FAFSA was correct. So this is just our process of confirming the accuracy of the information that you inputted. So if you receive any notifications that you've been selected for verification, make sure that you respond immediately and promptly to the request of each school. If you are selected at one school, you'll be selected at every school in which you applied, and you will have to fill out separate applications for each school. So make sure that you're turning that information in as soon as possible, and do know that us verification counselors are not trying to be all in your business. We just need to get the correct information so that we can move forward with processing your financial aid package and sending that to you. So just reach out again if you have any questions about that process. So again, just to keep in mind that each school will ask you to complete verification worksheets. They might even ask you to send in separate copies of your tax returns if you did not use the IRS data retrieval tool. However, if you use the data retrieval tool, in most cases, we don't need another copy of your tax returns. And sometimes we might even have you ask you like to send in statements of support if you have any additional dependents in your home. So just keep in mind that there's a lot of paperwork that we might request through the verification process, but again, it's all to confirm the accuracy of the information that you listed on the FAFSA. So the overall role of the Office of Financial Aid is to determine the eligibility of your financial aid awards. We prepare your financial aid packages, and when we send you award notification letters. So if anything ever changes to your financial aid package, we will notify you of those changes. And this is the role of every financial aid office. So this is not specific to Bellarmine. So if you have any questions regarding any of those things, feel free to reach out. And again, this is the most important slide, especially in the times that we are in right now. During the pandemic, we have a lot of students whose financial information, again, the FAFSA uses the prior year. So 2020, when you're going to, next year when you're going to fill out the FAFSA and you are inputting information from the 2020 year, that tax information might not look like your current situation. And if that's the case, if there are any of the special circumstances apply to you that are listed on the screen, reach out to the Office of Financial Aid and let them know. The FAFSA does not give you the opportunity to express these special circumstances. However, the federal government has allowed each individual Office of Financial Aid, they've given us permission to take these special circumstances into consideration and make corrections to your FAFSA application for you. Keep in mind, this will require that you fill out additional documentation, but if any of these circumstances apply to you, this can lower your expected family contribution, and in return, it could make you eligible for additional aid. So if any of them apply for you, please reach out to us as soon as possible after you've completed your FAFSA application. So each school is required by law to have a net price calculator on their website. So juniors, sophomores out there, if you kind of want to get an idea of what your financial aid package is going to look like at each school, you can go out to their specific website, look for their net price calculator. It'll ask you to type in a little bit of information about you, your GPA, your test scores, even a little bit about your financial situation, and it will give you a overall financial aid package, like a general financial aid package. Of course, these are estimates, but you can use this as a tool to kind of gauge what kind of scholarships you might see at the school or institution that you are considering applying to. And again, I do work at Bellarmine University, but even if you're not interested at attending Bellarmine and you're interested in going to another school, our Office of Financial Aid is still a resource for you. So please reach out to us with any questions that you have. If you want help completing the FAFSA come October 1st, give us a call. We have virtual appointments and we will help you fill out that FAFSA online. And if you want to come into the office, we have in-person appointments as well. So you can come in and we can help you in office as well. So just let us know if you have any questions. And that is it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of the amazing information that you have shared here with us this evening. Although some of it was specific to your experiences at Bellarmine, a lot of this information, actually most of this information, carries through for all universities in all scenarios.
Yes.
The big thing that I took away from your presentation this evening, there were two main points. That email address is super important to make sure it's something you can access once you set up those accounts, because for JCPS students, your email will go away as soon as you graduate. So you will no longer have access to your school email. So please use something that you can access in the future as well. The other key point is don't pay people to help you. That is something that there are a lot of opportunities out there that may come your way when it comes to, sign up for this program, pay us this fee, and we'll help you fill out this form. You have an abundance of resources to be able to fill out the FAFSA and support you through this process. So please make sure you reach out before you make any payments to anyone to the resources that you have access to for free. One question that I get asked a lot that I think is kind of a tricky question is, should everyone fill out the FAFSA? And what if I'm going to school and I'm not really, I'm not going to be eligible for anything, and should I fill out the FAFSA?
Yes, you should. The answer to that question is yes, yes, yes. Always complete the FAFSA application form because you never know what aid you're going to be eligible for until you complete that form. It's free. And like I said, if you use the data retrieval tool, it can really simplify and make the process a lot easier. Specifically, there are some schools that award institutional aid based off of the FAFSA application as well. So specific to Bellarmine, if you complete the FAFSA application and come on a campus visit, that's automatically a $1,500 scholarship that you're receiving. Also, we give you need-based aid based off of that FAFSA application as well. So if we don't have that on file, we have no way of knowing what you might qualify for. And even if you don't qualify for any of the federal programs and you only end up getting loans, you can always decline them at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of this information. And like we've said, it is very important that you use the resources you have. Make sure you are maximizing your opportunities when it comes to financial aid, scholarships, and resources that are out there. So we have received a lot of amazing information on ways to pay for college once you are that part or at that point in the process. If you continue to have any questions, or if you're watching this back later, we will leave the question and answer document open for a few more days so that you can ask those questions and we'll get answers for you. And we are super fortunate to have Jazzmine available to us at Manual right now. So she'll be able to help us answer some questions that come in regarding that financial aid process from the financial aid expert's perspective. So we are super fortunate to have that resource available to us right now. So and it looks like, let me just double check to make sure we don't have any questions that have come through.
And Ms. Maron, I also wanted to point out that never pay to apply for a scholarship either. I've had a few students come in our office recently saying that they have paid to join a database system to apply for scholarships. Don't do that. It's typically a scam, and there's a lot of scholarship resources that you can find out there for free.
Very good point. Yes. Please, before at any step of this process, before you pay for anything, please come check with us before that. And I think there was one more question that Dr. Benson had that came through on her end was, once I put all of this private information into the system, does it stay private when it's in regards to the FAFSA? Does it stay with the university? Where does that information kind of land?
Yes, it stays private, specifically with the financial aid office itself. So none of your financial aid information is going to be shared outside of the financial aid office. So it is very secure.
Great. Yeah, I know there's a lot of things that you went through tonight that are very personal and private that we don't want shared with a lot of people. So that's great information to have. We are right at 7:45. So we want to thank everybody for joining us here this evening. If you have any additional questions and would like to ask those, please make sure you seek us out at the Manual Counseling Office and with Mr. Fowler at YPass, or complete the question document. We'll be happy to answer them from that resource as well. So thank you guys for joining us this evening, and you all have a good night.
Bye.
All right, we're off. Woohoo!